Welcome to Film Phreeks. This is Justin Llewellyn.
And Eddie Williams.
And tonight we're going to be doing another audio review, and this time we're going to be reviewing the 12th installment in the X-Men franchise, which is Dark Phoenix, which is
the final installment.
Well, the final main installment of the main X-Men movies that was produced by 20th Century Fox, since Disney's gotten out a hold of the rights. And this is now the 12th installment in the entire franchise, and it's a direct sequel to the other main X-Men movies, especially with First Class and Days of Future Past and Apocalypse. And it's directed by Simon Kinberg and stars pretty much everyone at this point: James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, and all them. And in this story, we deal with Jean Grey, who was introduced in the last movie, in Apocalypse, played by Sophie Turner, her and the X-Men end up going on a space mission to help rescue these astronauts. And it's set in the early 90s, and there's a mission that goes wrong, and as you see in the trailer, something happens with Jean where she gets a hold of the Phoenix power, and she ends up basically not being able to control her powers, and she ends up basically losing her mind. And she comes across Jessica Chastain's character, who wants her to basically be evil. And that's pretty much the bare minimum, because really that's the entire plot of this entire film. Out of the X-Men films, I think this is probably the most basic plot we've seen out of the entire franchise.
Oh, dude, yeah, I would have to say it's the most basic plot, because they're back when they were in their highest points. Even with Apocalypse last movie, they tried to be very complex to try to create something creative. Something where you gotta think and twists and turns. Yeah, this one was. You can tell it was dealt with a big fuck you.
Yeah. Now here's a little backstory. Now I've growing up, I will admit that I actually was an X-Men fan growing up. Before, when the first movie came out back in 2000, that was actually my first start of getting introduced to the X-Men franchise, because it made me go back and watch the animated series and stuff. And I grew up with playing some of the video games and things like that. And when
I played with some of the video games. I never really did watch much of the cartoon. I'm not really. I was late to the game on the X-Men. It actually took me quite a few years before I started watching them.
Yeah, with the early films, especially.
It wasn't until Days of Future Past that I started really going and seeing them.
Yeah. And when the first two X-Men movies came out, those movies really created a whole new level of superhero films when they came out. And much like with Spider-Man in the early 2000s, they changed the game for superhero films. And after X-Men 2 came out, that movie really showed that you can take so many characters and have a lot of fun with it and make a really great story out of it. And then when the third one came out, that was at a point where they pretty much got it to the point where they kind of lost their steam, because keep in mind that when that film came out, it was directed by Brett Ratner, and they actually used the same story in this one, where they used the Dark Phoenix saga. And that one was a very disappointing route. And I remember when I first watched it, I liked it when it first came out, but over the years I've started to fully just not really care too much over it. But I still don't entirely hate it. I felt like it was a wasted opportunity.
Yeah.
And then it really wasn't until the next fall, and then after we had X-Men Origins Wolverine, which was starting to do the solo films, it really seemed like they kind of lost their game with X-Men. And then when they brought out with X-Men First Class, that's when they started bringing back up, where they were focused on the younger cast of characters, playing the young versions of them. And that in Days of Future Past really held up as a great new start for the franchise.
Exactly. And to me also, as continuing on the franchise, I personally enjoyed the hell out of Apocalypse.
I did too.
I know a lot of people didn't like it, and it does have its flaws, but yeah.
Yeah, I did too. Apocalypse, I think it's definitely not one of my favorite. It definitely has its problems, but I certainly enjoyed that. We pretty much got in a way a precursor to Infinity War, where it was that whole big epic conclusion almost. And then
epic conclusion, and really it was the devastation and everything that happened in this film. Since this franchise decided it was going to call it quits and final, maybe it was probably best that we could have said Apocalypse was the final one.
Yeah, I mean, we had our other films in the X-Men franchise, like the Deadpool movies and stuff, which are fun. And then you also had, well, they had a missed opportunity with the first Wolverine movie, but when they brought out the Wolverine and then Logan, that's when they started, really doing a lot more with it. And Logan, to me, holds up as my favorite X-Men movie.
Yes, Logan's mine, too.
Yeah, and then with this one coming out, this one had quite a lot of history behind the scenes, because a couple years ago when this film was announced, they actually intended to do this as a trilogy to focus on the younger mutants, especially with Cyclops and all them, and it was decided that at the time they wanted to do that. But as the years started going on, when this movie was still in development, along with the other film that still hasn't come out, which was New Mutants, it was basically, they kept pushing it back over due to massive reshoots that went on. And I believe that there were also rumors that 20th Century Fox, because they were kind of going across that deal with Disney, it felt like they were at a decline. It seemed like they really didn't know what to do with the franchise at this point. And when we first started getting like the trailers to Dark Phoenix, it was starting to get me a little worried, because I was already from the trailer. I was just like, I don't know, I'm not really feeling this. It doesn't really hold much interest.
Like out of all the X-Men films I've ever watched, I will say that the Dark Phoenix was so underwhelming. I just didn't give a shit.
I didn't either. Anything.
None of them to me grabbed me. I was like, holy fuck, how can this? Why do I feel so underwhelmed? It just don't know. I mean, when I saw the trailers.
Yeah, and there's also, keep in mind too, what the funny thing about this film was also written by the same guy who did the story to X-Men: The Last Stand, where he also did the story in that film. And it kind of shows that it seemed like he made an even worse film with this one, with using that storyline. But we'll get to that here later on. But already from the get-go, I was already worried. I was like, I'm just not feeling this. Because honestly, I was looking more forward to New Mutants because of the direction they were going to do with that film. And so far, out of the X-Men films I've seen, other than probably Origins, this is probably my second least favorite of the franchise.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with you on Origins, and this one there's a couple little things I would say it's better than Origins, but that's not saying much. Yeah, this is probably the second worst X-Men film.
Yeah, this, and keep in mind, if there is probably going to be some minor spoilers that we talk about, because this is going to be one of those few occasions where we're not going to really do a spoiler discussion like we do our usual route, so we're going to combine it more with this one.
Because really, we'll get into our cons and that why we're not going to do a spoiler review. I mean, I can just tell you now, it's basically, it's like a fucking dumbass that wrote this fucking plot. It's the most easiest plot ever.
Yeah.
It's probably the most easiest structure. I mean, if you go to film school and you get the part where they want you to start building plots, it's probably first draft.
Yeah.
Shit.
Now, to get my pros out of the way, I will say that the cast, I mean, well, for at least some of the main actors involved with James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, and Sophie Turner, it seems like, they're the only ones in the film that seem like they really wanted to do something with this material, and they do great performances for what they're given. Now, I have a problem with the writing.
Yeah, the cast didn't really do, like you said, like McAvoy and Fassbender. I mean, even the girl that played the Phoenix,
Sophie Turner,
that was did the Dark Phoenix. Yeah, Sophia Turner. Yeah, she was not bad, as some people have told me. Because I saw some reviews before I went and saw it today, and I will say that she didn't do as bad as a lot of people claim she did.
No, like I said, like the performances are fine. Like, I mean, because they at least try to make this material work. It's just, it really holds back a lot because of the writing that's involved. But we'll get to that here later. The other praise I will say is that the film does have a couple of neat, well, it's got a couple of neat action sequences that I actually did enjoy, even though it really didn't have much of an emotional weight to it. I still like the way they were directed, if that makes sense.
Some of the action sequences were like, as far as like, like the Magneto scene where he's crushing and how fast he's moving.
Yeah.
That train scene. Some of that stuff was really cool looking. And how Phoenix, how she's flying, she has all the colors on her. Visually, the film did good. I mean, I'll get into a minor CGI issue later on, but yeah. For most part, the visuals was pretty good.
Yeah, and I also saw this film in 3D, and I thought that was at least a benefit, that the 3D was still pretty good, and it really made me feel like, there was stuff actually coming out the screen and stuff. So there was at least that. I also got to give credit to the score, because unlike the other X-Men films, this is the first one that I've heard that they actually got Hans Zimmer involved with the music, and I thought it was a pretty great score.
Yeah, it had a pretty good score. I was wondering about that. I was like, this score is actually not too bad. It's like a sense of, it tries to give you a sense of dread. Unfortunately, the score is not matching the movie.
Yeah, but I mean,
the score was great to hear.
Yeah, but I mean, there are cues here and there that I thought really worked, and it almost, in a way, like it was kind of reminding me of the Hans Zimmer's music from, like, in some moments of Thin Red Line. There are certain cues that he puts in there, so there's at least that. As far as that, though, I mean, that's really all the biggest, really, like, praises I'll get, because really, the rest of this film, I can say, even though it didn't piss me off, I was just so much in just blah state, like, I really did not care, like, at all.
Yeah, I mean, just like the trailers and just like the pre-reviews I saw, yeah, I can't say that I would be pissed. It's just, I expected it from what I was given. And, yeah, I was pretty blah.
Yeah.
Like, so.
So, yeah,
that's pretty sad, seeing as this is supposed to be the end game of the franchise.
Yeah. And
because, it's now going to be rebooted, remade, everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There is one thing I will say, too.
So let me go into my major con at first. The writing.
Mm-hmm.
What in the fucking hell? How could you wrote this film so fucking bad? I mean, this is so generic. I mean, I could already predict each fucking scene.
Yeah.
You got the whole fucking saving the space people, and then of course we saw in the trailer that fucking like Phoenix shit, that colorful shit went inside her, some force, and then she can't control herself, and then it just going throughout the scene, she's just going crazy, and you knew that there were going to be a point in time where you're going to be introduced to these new villains, and they fucking barely in this motherfucking movie. You don't even know the villains hardly. And we'll get into another reason why I don't like the villains in a second. But yeah, it goes from A to B, and then really the third quarter, when you expect the whole plot where they get captured, and then you got to plan stuff. You're at your down part. And then you plan the epic battle and all this shit. All this is all cut out, and it just goes straight to the final battle and it's over with.
Yeah.
It's like, so the writing is fucking bad.
Yeah, there is one thing I would, not to go back a bit, but there is also one other praise I'll say. There is something that involves with Jean Grey's backstory that I thought was one of the only parts I thought kind of worked on an emotional level. So there was at least that, at least.
Yeah, yes, there's that. You're right about that, like the whole emotional. However, I still wasn't really big on it because we saw a film that almost was identical to that this year.
Well, yeah, true. I got you on that. But yeah, the writing in this, I agree. It was fucking just so underwhelming, or it was so bad. Like, you're talking about an X-Men franchise that's built up about, it's led to this point, them trying to redo the Phoenix storyline, which was a waste opportunity in Last Stand. And they made it even worse in this because when we get introduced to the actual Phoenix, when she actually starts to become the Phoenix, they really don't take advantage of it. Because we'll get into some spoilers.
There's sequences where she, you saw in the trailers where she got she like uses her power of Magneto and she overpowers him, and then Xavier and all that stuff. And basically, what you're given in the trailer is basically what you fucking see only.
Yeah, because
it's like, okay, and then you're gonna get that typical twist where they're gonna be able to talk her out of, not to understand her powers and defeat that one alien thing you never get to fucking, know anything about, like these breed of aliens coming down and wanting that power.
Yeah, that just came out of nowhere. And also, that's another thing, too. Like, as much as I enjoy Jessica Chastain as an actress, she was really fucking wasted in this film. Like, she had really nothing to work with for her character. We don't know who the fuck she is. We don't really know what really her motivation is other than trying to, destroy all life and all that.
Her only motivation is to want that same power.
Yeah, exactly.
To build them other planets. But you don't even get to know these motherfuckers because they abruptly show up at a fucking party.
Exactly.
And then you don't get to know anything. And not only that, I also have a major fucking problem when the shit starts hitting the fan, and of course, with every villain, with each film that has a villain, they always have like kind of like an army with them. And humans were even fucking like police officers and army people were fucking even killing some of the alien things.
Yeah. Easily. Not just that, but another thing I have to get into now that was something that was supposed to be, it was trying to go for an emotional level and on when they do this event, but I really didn't feel nothing, even though I should. And this is a spoiler, when they kill off Mystique. Now, if you've been following the fucking trailers, it's kind of really given that we would know that she would fucking die. Because it really, you can... The biggest mistake that they did in the trailers was you're getting that scene where she pushes Mystique away. That actually shows her get killed. And that's literally in the fucking movie.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Not only that, a little backstory. Jennifer Lawrence, and I'm not trying to get all political here, but she kind of got a little... If you guys recall in Apocalypse, she got real... That was when she was in her highest peak of kind of getting into politics at the point, and she actually had a problem with the movie Apocalypse and the poster and all this and the trailers and all that, and she was very outspoken. And I'm not saying I'm not going to say if I agree or disagree with her, but to involve it in the plot bothered the fuck out of me, and you could tell that she was being just a fucking kind of an ass in the movie.
Yeah,
by her performance in Apocalypse. She carries that film into this film, carries that into this film too.
Exactly.
And like you said, you spoiled that she was killed. I actually was fucking happy.
Yeah.
Because she had to get these political fucking lines in that really, they just stick to the fucking superhero film. Stop bringing your personal shit into the film.
Yeah, and the other thing...
It shouldn't be X-Men. It needs to be women.
Yeah.
Well, there is women in X-Men. Who cares? Stop using fucking, SJW lines.
Exactly, and that's saying a lot because I liked her in the first two X-Men movies with First Class and Days of Future Past, because at least in those films, they had a good character art they were doing with her character. But when it came around Apocalypse, we didn't do anything.
I do have an issue with, and they carried it in this film also. Get over your war with fucking Xavier.
Exactly.
Like, get over it already. This film... Gets it on an annoying standpoint at this point.
Yeah, it does. And then also, you have another problem here. The writing comes down to this, is that we really don't really get much of any new thing that from our characters. We don't get nothing. When we get introduced to Magneto, we see that he's pretty much, living on his own in, a place that was bought by the U.S. government and stuff. And after he left in Apocalypse, and he's still going through the same type of emotions like he did in the other film, where he's doesn't like Xavier, then he has to come into the third act to help him out and stuff, and it's just the same fucking shit over and over again.
And another thing, what's his name? Quicksilver or whatever his name is?
Quicksilver.
Huh?
Yeah, Quicksilver.
Yeah, Quicksilver. What's up with them only using him for 2 fucking minutes in this movie?
I know. They give here's another spoiler. After they first had their encounter with Jean, he's pretty much gone the rest of the film because he gets injured. And I'm like, oh man, you couldn't save him for the fucking climax? See?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like the first time they ever did that to Quicksilver. And they still haven't able to close out. They didn't get that closeout with him and Magneto.
Yeah, they didn't.
So what's up with that? We never get that closure. Because if you guys remember Apocalypse, they really dug deep into, like, hey, he doesn't know I'm his son.
Yeah, but unfortunately that never comes
back. There's no closure with them two.
Yeah, and the other biggest thing too is this film, it jumps at such a really fucking fast pace to the point that there are dialogue scenes that are fucking like, that felt like straight out of a Lifetime movie, and they come across as just very, quick, and you're supposed to be feeling some type of emotion with it, but these conversations don't even last less than a fucking minute, and then we go to another action scene.
That's what I'm saying. The dialogue in this film is very short-lived. Like, it's almost like they ran out of, like, they didn't know what they wanted their characters to say. So they said, let's make it quick. Let's get through scenes where you have to talk. Let's get to the next, to the point. I would probably agree with that other films, but this film, because it was lack of dialogue the entire fucking movie, it's almost like, it's like, even our, like, memorable characters like Xavier and all them, they don't have much to say.
They don't.
It's like they're speechless.
Exactly.
It's like, God damn.
And my biggest disappointment with this is going back to when we have, you're supposed to be building up that, Jean can pretty much, is scared of her powers and stuff. And from what I understood behind the scenes, they actually had a climax involved that was actually going to take place in space and stuff, but they changed it in favor of the train sequence. And you can tell the way that the film is pretty much like structured. When it gets to its third act, you can tell it looks out of fucking place because the way that it feels
does look out of place, because you got to think at this scene is when they get caught when they were fighting the middle scene, which in structural movie format that would be the middle of your movie.
Mm-hmm.
And you get the whole where they're at their down point, but then you come to find out the down point is actually supposed to be the final battle and closure to the movie. I'm like, oh my god.
And it was so quick. And when it does, after you even get past the train stuff, it comes to a point where it's so anticlimactic because we pretty much see that Jean is able to pretty much stop all these guys by herself and pretty much, defeat Jessica Chastain's character easily. I was like, man, that was too fucking short.
Yeah, and it was basically kind of a sacrificey type thing.
Yeah,
which it's just like, boom, it's over. And then next scene, Xavier accepts fault because everybody in this film is bitching that he was the cause of this, because you want to build your ego and stuff, which they mention, but they don't really dig deep into it. So he accepts that his ego was overdrawn, and he gives the school under her name and steps down. And you basically get a fucking stolen scene out of Dark Knight Rises where they meet at a fucking cafe.
Yeah, where him and Magneto meet together and play chess. Which, granted, I could see the scene like that working because it's like how the first movie was with Xavier and Magneto doing their thing. But unfortunately, it being a final film in the way that it was written, it really fucking didn't work.
Yeah,
and
it just abruptly showed up. We don't get that sense of Xavier is officially done.
Exactly.
It just comes. This film almost feels like a part one of a film, but even if it was a part one or a filler, it still would be a fucking bad approach at a movie.
It would be, and
on a structural standpoint, yeah.
And the thing, after all these years, they were trying to fix the problems that Last Stand did. But you know what? Given for what it was, at least I can say with Last Stand, they at least did stuff in that plot that, while it was rushed, I still bought what they were going for. Like the stuff with the cure and the stuff that they kind of set up with Phoenix. I actually felt an emotional weight in some parts in that film. And believe it or not...
at least in that one they were going for a very complex story.
Yeah.
Versus this one, it was just generic, and it was like, alright, let's receipt this, fuck, I don't know what to say. Hey, producer, do you? Hey, writer, let's just end it. We don't own it anyways, fuck it.
Yeah, they just gave up pretty much.
That's basically what it was.
Yeah, and like you were saying, with some of the visual effects that they also have, I felt looked pretty bad in some parts too.
Yeah, the part where they're going inside her brain, and this was a pretty fucking cop-out fucking scene where she starts saying, because she heard her dad's voice, that's what starts the plot of her going mean.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I don't fucking buy that. But anyways, yeah, the part where like he's in his like little office thing, that thing where he comes out and he's at it, he puts his helmet on and stuff. Where he brings the other two, and they start seeing these red dots everywhere. You could tell it was a fucking green screen.
Yeah,
it was done bad.
Yeah, definitely. And and yeah, this movie, it's got like so much like problems with trying to just rush everything over, and plus also it seemed like we were missing deleted scenes or something, because they set up this plot point with Magneto and this girl that he's been hanging around with, and there's a scene where she ends up getting killed, and we're supposed to buy that there was probably something more with her character, but you can tell that there were scenes that were cut out that would have probably impacted that, because when you notice like the way that he reacts to her, it feels like it was for a different fucking scene altogether. Like there's like more characters they bring up in this film that just abruptly come in, and then when they're gone, you're just like, okay, well that person's gone, So.
But yeah, anyways, this was pretty fucking bad.
Yeah. So with that being said, with everything involved, it just makes me kind of wonder at this point, like, if New Mutants comes out, I think they're probably going to either release it as it is, or they're probably going to release it probably to Disney Plus, since they've got a hold of the rights to it. Because in the future, they actually have said they're going to reboot the X-Men franchise and bring it into the MCU.
Yep.
So.
And to be honest with you, it's for the best, because right now, even the good ones, you gotta also think that the one thing they all share the problems with, their continuity issues.
Yeah, in this
there's
one,
a lot of continuity. Oh, and there's a big continuity issue somebody brought up too right before we started this review. So this movie takes place in the '90s, and you got our characters like Xavier, and you got Michael Fassbender's character, and they still kind of look mid-age, young, and I believe when they start getting older, like, the ones we got in the first and the second one where, Patrick Stewart and all them played the characters, that's only like, 10 years away?
8.
8? So we're supposed to believe they aged that much?
Yeah. I mean...
8 years? Yeah. That's one thing, these X-Men movies, that's what's bothered me, even for the good ones. Other than fucking Logan, I love, but even that one takes its own, its own route. So these films haven't been done right in the continuity department. So
yeah.
So yeah, that's probably best. But with that being said, I thought about it. And I think I'm pretty content with this grade. I'm gonna give it a high disaster rating on the Film Phreeks meter.
I agree with you. I'm going with a high disaster grade on the Film Phreeks meter as well. And for those of you who have also seen Dark Phoenix, and also the other X-Men films, let us know in the comments below of what you thought about it. If you like what you hear, feel free to like and subscribe more to our channel, and check out some other reviews here and our website at filmphreeks.com, and we'll be seeing you in our next review. We'll see you later.